Hello everyone, almost Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to A Taste of Shabbat, where we give you a little taste of Shabbat. We're going to start with the words of Ma Yafeh Hayom, how wonderful it is for us to be together because it is Shabbat. Ma Yafeh Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Ma Yafeh Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Last time. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. I have a very,
Joey's so excited for Shabbat.
He hasn't gotten the message that Shabbat is joyous. So we're having a little temper tantrum in the background. It's okay. It's Shabbat. It's fine.
It's a taste of your Shabbat.
It's a taste.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. And we have to start. I have to wish a special, lovely happy birthday to my wife, Julia. So happy birthday, sweetie. I love you very much. And with that, what better way to celebrate than with some candles and wine and challah? So we'll start Shabbat off with a little bit of all three of those things.
For those of you who would like to join me in lighting the Shabbat candles, the moment of truth, and it worked. Okay, we're going to let go of the week, whatever it was that happened, whatever you didn't get done. It is gone. This is the time to bring in that light of Shabbat and let that peace and that relaxation just wash over us. We're going to bring in that light 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom. For those of you about to enjoy your Friday night meal, we join together in Kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirishanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh zeichel yitziat mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim ve'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat lechayim.
L'chaim.
And last but not least, we have the blessing over our challah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat Shalom B'tei Avon. I hope you enjoy your Shabbat meal. We're going to continue to welcome in Shabbat with the words of Shalom Aleichem. We welcome in the angels to bless our communities. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. שלום עליכם מלכי השרת, מלכי עליונים, מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. בואכם לשלום, מלכי השלום, מלכי עליונים, מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ברכוני לשלום, מלכי השלום, מלכי עליון, מלך מלכי המלכים, קדוש ברוך הוא. ברכוני לשלום, מלכי השלום, מלכי עליון, מלך מלכי המלכים, קדוש ברוך הוא. צאתם לשלום, מלכי השלום, מלכי עליונים, מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. יאי לה 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 לה, יא לה 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 לה, יא לה 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 לה, לה 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 לה, לה 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 לה, לה 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 לה, יאי לה 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 לה, יא לה 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 לה, יא לה 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 לה, לה 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 לה, יא לה לה לה, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Not only is it my wife's birthday, but it is Friday the 13th. Yes, and for some reason in this country, probably thanks to that early 80s movie, Friday the 13th, we somehow have this connection that the Friday the 13th is a terribly bad day. The superstition surrounding this day does go back further than just that movie, by the way. But it's not just in American society that we have superstitions. Judaism has its own superstitions. So I wanted to remind you, or at least educate you if you don't know about some of these, some of the superstitions that we have in our tradition. Now, a lot of them have to do with this idea of the evil eye, the idea that there are spirits or there is this force out there of negativity and destruction, and that we have to work as hard as we can to make sure to ward off that evil force. So we have, of course, the chamsa, which some people wear, or you see it, and sometimes people put it in their crib as a way to ward off the evil eye. We have the red string, made famous by Madonna and others, even though that's not really Kabbalah. We have, of course, this idea of spitting 3 times, poo, poo, poo. Now, this happens either when you hear bad news or sometimes when you hear good news. But the whole idea is that there was this connection between saliva and the idea that that could ward off the evil spirit. So sometimes you'll see someone poo 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 after they hear some bad news or after they hear some good news. There is the idea of sneezing on the truth, that if you're in a conversation and someone sneezes in the middle of the conversation, you are sneezing on the truth that whatever they just said is going to come true. And it's linked to this idea that the idea that maybe there were these evil spirits that could potentially come into your body when you were sneezing. Also linked to this idea of bless you when people sneeze. There is the tradition also of always closing an open book, that we shouldn't leave a book open, especially this comes into effect whether it's a prayer book or a Torah commentary. The idea being that the evil spirits could jump into that book and then invade the knowledge that exists in those books and then turn it into no good. There is the idea of salt in the pockets or in the corners of the room, that if you have new clothes or if you have a new house, that you would put salt in the corners to make sure that you would ward off the evil spirits. There was actually a tradition a long time ago where people would pay others to go and live in their new home for a little while just to make sure that there was a little bit of protection. There's the idea of no baby showers. There's the idea of no hats or shoes on your bed because, God forbid, the evil spirits could invade there. Breaking of the glass. Traditionally, we think of the breaking of the glass at the end of the wedding ceremony as a way of remembering the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. But others say, from the superstitious point of view, that it's to ward off the spirit of Lilith, who you have to go back to the story of Adam and Eve. There's this idea that there's this Lilith character who comes in and wants to destroy marriages. And last but not least, this idea of changing your name after you have survived a life-threatening illness, usually your Hebrew name, as a way that by changing your name, you will no longer have to deal with some of the challenges or the spirits, the negative spirits that existed with your previous name. So those are just a few of our own Jewish superstitions. With that, I turn it back to the Cantor.
That was fascinating. Thank you for that, Rabbi Joel.
Anytime.
Thank you. So we're going to continue with our taste of Shabbat by taking a moment to just quiet ourselves, quiet the thoughts running through our head, take a nice deep breath as we all recite the words of the Shema together, words that tell us that we are all united as one and that encourage us by the fact that we close our eyes to really focus ourselves, that we're supposed to listen to all of the different sounds and all of the different voices and remember that we are one. So we'll take a nice deep breath. Let that go. One more deep breath. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
This week's Torah portion is Shoftim. We're getting into the middle of the book of Deuteronomy. We're almost at the end of this Torah. There's a very famous and important phrase that we find towards the beginning of this week's Torah portion. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdof. Justice, justice, you shall pursue. It's an important phrase not only because it reminds us of this need to constantly pursue justice, or the idea that there's a repetition of the word tzedek where we are supposed to recognize that any repetition or any word, for example, that exists in the Torah has specific meaning. So the repetition of a word is to emphasize the significance of that word. Here we are emphasizing this idea that we are constantly supposed to pursue this idea of tzedek, of justice. But I want to point out another really important connection to this phrase, the word tzedek and the word tzedakah. I just volunteered at the Karsh Center this morning. There was a big back-to-school event where they were giving out hundreds and hundreds of backpacks with supplies as well as baskets full of food to those in need in our neighborhood near our Koreatown campus. And what's really important about the idea of tzedakah is that tzedakah is not charity. We usually define it as charity and translate it as charity. But tzedakah comes from this idea of tzedek, which is justice. That what we are doing when we are giving tzedakah, it's not just giving a gift to someone else. We are supposed to embody empathy and compassion to the cause that we are trying to support. That the very essence of tzedakah is that we are pursuing, trying to bring more justice and righteousness into the world. That it's not just something we just do without thinking about how it can impact that person and our society long term. You know, the highest form of tzedakah in our tradition is to be able to help someone to the point where they are self-sustainable, where they have the skills, the resources to be able to sustain themselves and support themselves. That's the highest level of tzedakah. There are actually 8 levels that Maimonides lays out to us. But there's another important idea around tzedakah and tzedek that we have to keep in mind, this idea of justice, this idea of pursuing justice. And that's a phrase from Pirkei Avot, which says, "You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to desist from it." This work of justice, this work of trying to make the world a better place is not something that we are going to be able to do in our lifetime, right? It's an unending pursuit. But as our traditions suggest to us, we have a responsibility not to sit back and be apathetic, but to go all in, to do all we can with our resources financially or our passions and our skills to be able to try and bring more justice into the world. And that is the highlight of this week's Torah portion. With that, we are going to move, as we always do, just to a moment of taking a deep breath and having a little bit of self-reflection.
During this month of Elul, which is our official countdown for the High Holy Days, once the month of Elul has ended, it is time for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. But we add a piece of liturgy, the words of Psalm 27, which simply ask that each of us may dwell in the house of God forever. And during this month, when we're really supposed to do a cheshbon hanefesh, an accounting of our souls, an accounting of where we are in our life, as I'm about to sing this, I want you to think about what it means to you to dwell in the house of God. To me, just as Rabbi Joel just spoke about, that is a very active action, to dwell in holiness. The idea of tzedek tirdof, that we dwell in the house of God when we pursue things like justice and peace for everyone that we come across. So as we sing through this, I just ask you to think about what it means for you to dwell in the house of God during this month of Elul. Achat sha'alti me'et Adonai ota bakesh. Achat sha'alti me'et Adonai ota bakesh. Shivti beveit Adonai kol yemei chayai. לחזות בנועם אדוני ולבקר היכלו. לחזות בנועם אדוני ולבקר היכלו. One thing I ask of you, I earnestly pray for, that I might dwell in your house all the days of my life, knowing the beauty of you, and to dwell in your holy place, knowing the beauty of you, and to dwell in your holy place. And we end our time with the words of Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom. We have a tradition at Wilshire on Friday nights, even though traditionally don't blow shofar on Friday nights, but we have a tradition in the month of Elul to honor the upcoming high holidays with a little blast of the shofar. So hopefully I won't freak out my dog. But with that,
You ready?
call out. Yeah, I'm ready.
You want to do all of them? Or just one? Let's just do one. Want to do one?
Let's just do one. Yeah.
Okay. Tekiah Gedolah. Yasher Koach.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom. Bye.